Welcome to the Teen Life Podcast, where we research teen culture so you can focus on connection. We have a pretty fun week for you. We're going to start off with Caleb's Corner. I'm going to talk about Little Red Book. And if you're confused, I do not mean the book of like teachings and quotes from Mao Zedong. Okay, it is. I'll explain it a little later. It's basically a Chinese Instagram. Then we're going to go on to food dyes and then talk about classrooms and group environments. But to kind of get in to Little Red Book and why it's important and why it's crazy. Okay.
Is it important?
It is to me. It is to me. Okay, y'all can talk about Taylor Swift every episode. Let me talk about my weird special interests and how it applies. Okay, so Little Red Book is like basically Chinese Instagram. Like very literally, you post pictures and then you leave the caption. And there's a story that came out of China about this guy named Zhao Ai. He posted on Instagram, basically, in December of 21 with a caption that said, "I can't find a girlfriend. What do you think my problem is?" And then
So vulnerable.
I know. And so then people start unloading on him, you looked in the mirror, things like that, just brutal. And then there's a few people that are asking questions okay, how old are you? What job do you work? Do you own a house? How tall are you? Things like that. And he did not let the haters get to him. This is the craziest part about this story is this man remained unfazed through every step. Because then he posts a follow-up. He answered all the questions. Hey, I'm born in 96. I'm 5'7". I don't own a home. No past relationships. And then people, again, are just mean on the internet. And are like, well, of course you don't have a girlfriend. Things like that. And then people were trying to give him actual advice. Okay, have you tried changing your haircut? Have you, tried working out, updating your wardrobe, things like that? And he posted updates about once a week. So he posted a week out that he, changed his haircut, and people are like, okay, you still need, it makes you look 10 years younger, but we need to go for 20 years younger. We're basically a human Ken doll, basically of hey, here's what you can wear. And so he posted week after week of taking these people's advice, filtering out all of the comments, all of the hate, and was he changed his hairstyle. He started working out. He lost weight. He switched to contact lenses instead of glasses. He got a whole new closet. He would post pictures basically at the store of clothes racks and then put the prices of each one above it. And then people would give their input. He started a skincare routine. He started taking care of himself. And people became invested. They would look for Zhao Ai's update every week. And then he started shouting people out. So, there was a lady who helped him with his skincare routine. There's another lady who taught him how to style an outfit. And he took screenshots of the DM and was these are thank you, my sisters, shouting them out. We love Zhao. Okay. It gets crazier. He's gained a following. And then at a certain point, he basically becomes an influencer. People are invested in his story. He looks good. He's cut.
I saw the video. He does look. He made some big improvements.
Glow up. He did truly. And people start hiring him as a model, and he's in magazines, and he is a cultural touch point for a lot of people. And after 2 years, he finally gets married. He posts an update, and it says, "I'm getting married. Thank you everyone for your help."
Oh.
He did it. Okay.
How sweet.
And that should be the end. And I really wish it was the end because that is such a sweet story to me. But here's kind of how I think it applies to teen culture.
I thought you were about to drop another bomb of
no.
Okay.
No. Here's how
actually,
I think
he's dead.
he went out in a blaze of fire. No, he's doing good, I think. Happily married, I hope still. But here's how I think it kind of applies. Because Chinese citizens started seeing the success, and I think a lot of them saw an opportunity to maybe gain followers. Others saw an opportunity to have people give input on be honest with me. And so they started posting, doing the same thing, making follow-ups. And then it has now spread outside of China. And so there's people all over the world, and yes, in America, that will go and download this app and they'll post a picture of them like holding a piece of paper that in like Chinese says, "Tell me the truth." And then they're using Google Translate to filter through the comments to like figure out like how to better themselves. It's like there's an example. There's like a lot of examples of like Americans on this app, but this one 16-year-old girl is like, "Help me, please. My name is Tracy. I'm 16 and I'm looking for your advice." And so then people respond like from China, like what they should do and things like that. And so I think it's just a microcosm again of the kind of the pitfalls of social media and just everything like that. But there's rules if you do decide to post on Little Red Book. And hey, listen, teenagers, don't do this. Okay, that's my disclaimer to you. But hey, listen, here's rules. Be prepared for harsh comments or no comments. Right? Okay, you might not get famous off of this. Be open to suggestions. Post consistently. Right? Follow up with updates, and then keep going. Keep posting. So
the story really is so sweet of like, he took people's advice. Good for him for like taking some constructive criticism, but this does not, that's like a one-off. There's no way this actually works well. And the people who are trying to do it now aren't actually looking to get better.
Right.
They're looking
to go
viral.
And if you are doing it to get better, like there's no way you come off on the other side of that. Whether you do undergo like a cool like growth and like, you know, maybe taking better care of yourself without like some like trauma of like self-doubt and self-esteem issues, because like all these people are like picking you apart, telling you how to improve yourself. Like,
yeah, we talked about that a few episodes ago of like the negativity of you're just getting all this negative stuff for a few positive comments that are trying to help you. The
biggest thing with him is that he had the mental capacity to be able to take that stuff. Where because he's 25,
right?
You know, and that's This feels like a better version of like hotornot.com. That was like real big back then. You know,
like roast me, things like that.
Teenagers, you do not need from any country. These older men commenting on what you look like in your body. Like, please do not post this and invite feedback in that way. That is so creepy, and I hate that a lot. I don't like it.
I don't know. Me neither. That's why I wanted to get on your radar. A little joy, and then, you know, little reality check for us.
It feels like that would be a good Bachelor season of just, you know. That's like a reality show in waiting right here. So maybe we could get rich, Caleb, if we
I'll do it. All right.
Let's go to the reality people and say, what if we did this as a reality show? And just had a guy that we just said,
tell me the truth.
Yeah. Stream makeover, Little Red Book edition. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
The success rate. We got to find out all the stats.
Well, what I want to talk about today is food dyes, like artificial food dyes, because there's a lot of mixed, as I'll talk about, there's a lot of mixed opinions on this of if they're bad, if they're not, if we should keep them, if we shouldn't. But it's worth talking about, especially if you have a student who has ADHD or behavioral issues, because it can be tied to that. So just to start, artificial food dyes are petroleum derived. Dang it.
Leaving that in.
No, petroleum-derived substances that give color to food. And so these are, like, if you think of M&Ms, that's a great example. Fruit Loops. Skittles. Like these, if you think of bright colors, if you're looking at Gatorades or Powerades that have like those very unnatural, very bright colors.
Big red.
Yes.
It should not be that red.
That is so fair.
It should not. No soda is that. No.
But some say that they cause hyperactivity, cancer, or allergies. And where it gets really tricky is, as I was looking into it, some dyes are banned in some countries and allowed in others. So you're like in Europe, more are banned than in America. And so America says it's fine, but other countries say they're not, but they flip-flop them back and forth. Like there are some that are banned here, but aren't in the UK.
Follow the money. That's all it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that sounds so conspiracy theory, but there is, I saw a TikTok the other day that was this person buying cereal. I think it was in Mexico. Yeah, it was in Mexico. And there's a law in Mexico that if your cereal is not healthy and has like certain dyes, they have to like have a plain advertising with no like cartoon characters on the box.
I
Which
kinda
I'm
like
like,
that.
it's kind of genius. And then like if it's a clean, healthier, like more natural cereal, it can have all the advertisement it wants on it.
I'm just imagining like this like beige box of tricks. That's like tricks are for adults.
So it's like it's brands that we know. Like
Yeah.
there was a Fruit Loops, but it was a red box of Fruit Loops with like their wording,
Mhm.
but no Toucan Sam.
Hmm.
And because it has like certain things. Because like when I think of this kind of stuff, I think there was a stretch a few years ago where cereal got real intentional about, hey, we're gonna do like, I think Trix is one of them. Trix
Mhm.
put out more of a natural, like, we're gonna use less food color, we're gonna use less different kind of sugars and that kind of stuff. And so the cereal looked really different because it wasn't
Interesting.
processed and fake
Right.
and all that stuff. So like it's kind of wild. Like I think there is some overreaction to this kind of stuff. Like I think some people like, they'll be like, well, that cancer's up 900%. And it's probably because, well, yeah, but also we have better doctors and better things that, so I think there is some overreaction to some of this stuff, but it always makes me feel a little weird whenever things are banned everywhere but here. And it's
Right.
like,
Well, and just the reality of it is food dyes are only used to make food look more attractive. There's no nutritional value coming from these. Zero. And so all it is to make it more appealing, to make it look the color they want it to look. And what's crazy, I saw a stat that said that artificial food dye consumption has increased by 500% in the last 50 years. And children are the biggest consumers. And so it really is targeting our youth. And that's where you're seeing a lot of the behavioral issues. I did see some stats on the cancer thing, but the article I read, and I'll post it, basically said that's not as big of a threat as the behavioral hyperactivity part of it, that's more concerning right now. Most popular food dyes I'm sure you've heard of are red dye 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6, and they make around 90% of all food dyes used in the US. Red 40 is the one that I hear about all the time.
I think the biggest thing too is that, and I'm so guilty of this, but when you're about to talk about like there's organic labels that talk about this, but when you see, no added sugars and no food, no, it's organic and whatever, like our brains say, oh, it doesn't taste as good.
Right.
And what you just said is dyes have they don't affect taste. It just affects looks. So it's one of those things where like if you can, in certain things, if you can get away from that stuff, it might be worth giving it a shot.
The other thing too, like I feel like is like for that organic stuff is more expensive too. And it's like all of the unhealthy stuff tends to be, like if you're on a budget, you got to settle probably, even if you'd rather have the organic stuff for, tricks and the things that are cheaper. And it's just so interesting to me because, like, yeah, I get like on both sides of the extreme of, whatever it is, you can take it to the extreme of like, you probably, it's probably not at a point where you need to cut it out, like avoid it like the plague of like, I cannot have red dye 40, and, probably don't want to have just a red 40 diet, but, probably somewhere in between of like trying to be more aware of what you're putting to our bodies, what you're feeding and providing for your teens. But I mean, that's the other thing too, is, if you're on a budget, there's not really as much you can do.
The studies are actually really divided on this, if it doesn't make a difference or not, which is interesting. But like you're saying, Caleb, I think where it really would affect is our students who are already struggling in school, potentially, if they're in a lower socioeconomical like category, they also aren't going to have access to the organic, to the foods that don't have all these dyes because they're more expensive. And so I think this could be playing out in that as well. Anecdotally, we're trying to do this with my son because, once again, not necessarily tied to a study, but he drank an orange soda one day and was a nightmare, like our 6-year-old, where I was like, absolutely not. Like, what can we do to cut back on this? But he has friends in his class that are zero food dyes. Like, if there is someone that brings a treat to school that has food dyes, they're not allowed to eat it. And so I do think that parents are seeing, teachers probably are seeing around Christmas time, we noticed it more. Around Valentine's Day, when all of the red candy was coming out, we noticed behavioral issues that we didn't notice before. And so if your child has hyperactive or aggressive behavior, it could be beneficial to remove that and see if that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what the studies tell you, it doesn't hurt anything to remove that from their diet. Read labels. What is crazy, and I had heard this and then I like actually looked into it. There are things like white frosting, like a can of white frosting has food dye in it.
Why? Because it'd be cream, you know? That's gross.
Well,
Cream
no, but they
colored.
use like food dyes to make it look more white.
Yeah.
But like in your mind, if you're
That's
thinking
crazy
like,
to
I'm just going to avoid
Mhm.
the colored foods, that's not even necessarily the case. Like you have to actually read food labels and make sure like whole wheat pizza crust can have food dyes in it because they want to make it look a certain way. But as Tobin said, if it is USDA certified organic, that means that it contains no synthetic dyes. And so if
Okay.
you see that label now, there are also labels that are like contains organic ingredients. That is not necessarily the same thing, but if it has that USDA certified organic label, then you know that it's safe. But I just wanted to bring this up because it's a conversation that's happening more of our food dyes affecting our kids. Like I saw a TikTok video, I think, actually it might have been on Facebook, that around St. Patrick's Day, people were putting food coloring in milk to make it green, which
Ugh.
seems super gross to me. But if you go into the comment section, everyone was like, you are poisoning your child. How dare you? This is so toxic. Like you're saying, Caleb, there's probably a balance. Like we can
Right.
have fun things and
Mhm.
like can eat that. But at the same time, I do think it's something worth looking into because it probably is affecting your students.
Yeah. So as we transition to our last topic, if you're in a classroom or a group environment and some of these things are happening, you might need some help, like calming down the red 40 or something like that.
Every little thing matters.
Yeah.
Any help?
A couple of weeks ago, we talked about test anxiety, and it kind of, when we talked off the air, kind of triggered that maybe we should talk more about how to deal with a classroom or a group environment. So whether you are a teacher, a counselor, or a group leader of any type, just some things that, maybe some tips that I have gotten over the years of teaching, and just kind of just some experience as well. We talked specifically last episode about whenever we have a test, to greet your students at the door, and that's kind of
Mhm.
what sparked this. So I just want to
Mm.
reiterate, like, in any environment, I mean, like, it's really, it doesn't matter if you're meeting with a youth group or
Yep.
kids at your house, like for some sort of like group or whatever. Like when you introduce or meet somebody where they come in, it makes them immediately feel safer.
Yep.
Mhm.
Because it's like, I don't know. I mean, even as an adult, like if I get like, if someone like says, "Hey, come on in," like I'm stressed out about that. Or
Yeah.
like my wife's the opposite. My wife will go up to friends' houses and just try to go in without knocking or ringing the doorbell, and I'm like, "Stop it! What are you doing?" Like,
Courtesy knock.
yeah, like I like,
That's
like
me.
I don't care. They're our best friends. Like this is weird. Like, and so like even just with teens and students especially, just kind of giving them that safe space of, "Hey, I see you, welcome."
Mhm.
And I'll go even further. So this is coming from something called conscious discipline, which I think I mentioned this last time as well. It's from Dr. Becky Bailey, founded this years ago, and it's very poignant in schools, whether they're doing it, whether they realize they're doing it or not, they are doing it. And
Mm.
but they've kind of like put science to it. I hate the name of it. I've said this openly because I feel like the word discipline feels negative, and it feels like
Mhm.
I'm doing
Yeah.
something negative. But so if you're like, well, that's weird, like I understand that. Their whole thing talks about the brain state model. So you have three states in teens, especially. They have their survival state, which is in their STEM. They have their emotional state, which is in the limbic system, and then they have their executive state, which is the prefrontal lobes. And so we're gonna link this model so you can see it and you can learn more. But like basically in their survival state, they're asking, "Am I safe?"
Mm.
And then in their emotional state, they're asking, "Am I loved?" And then in their executive state, they're asking, "What can I learn from this?" But most of the kids that see you in groups, they're coming in with those first two. They're coming in survival or emotional.
Mm.
And so if you are at the door and like if y'all are coming into a room and I'm saying, "Carlie, it's so good to see you today. Hey, Caleb, I'm so glad you're here." That immediately answers the question, "Am I safe? And am I loved?"
Mhm.
So you're automatically fixing that for them no matter what the environment is. And obviously there's probably deeper things going on that you may have to like deal with, but that already answers that question
Yep.
when they come in the door. So if you're leading a group, and I don't know if you guys like did y'all ever have like that random, like, if a teacher was late and you had to like, "Oh, if they're 5 minutes late, I get to go home." Like, did y'all ever had that, like, in
In
your
college,
school?
yeah, we
Yeah.
In
did
college,
that.
yeah.
Yes.
Like I know I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. Like I'm the, like, if my meeting's at 9, I'm there at 8:40 kind of thing.
Mhm.
But if you're leading a group or you have something going on, like, you need to be first for
Yeah.
that reason alone of meeting
Yeah.
them at the door, but also if you come in late and having to set up and you're stressed and you're
Mhm.
like that stuff carries to the group
Mhm.
as well. So setting up ahead of
Totally.
time is really important. Bringing a snack or a treat like whenever you can or when it's appropriate, like that, it's always a win.
Yeah.
Like Karlie, you said you had I have to hear this story.
So I had a middle school math teacher that passed out bread slices in class. Like she would bring like a Mrs. Baird's loaf of bread, white bread.
Classic. Yeah.
And when she would ask questions or we would do stuff, she would literally toss us like ducks. She would toss us a slice of bread. And
That's
it's so
hilarious.
little. It surely didn't cost much, but it really did.
That's
Like it
genius.
was like so funny, and it was like a quirk that she did. And if it was a really special day, she got the cinnamon raisin
Uh-huh.
bread, and she would
Mm.
pass that out. And it was like, oh man, we've hit big leagues if the cinnamon raisin bread is coming out. But I use that as an example of like, if you're a teacher listening, going, I cannot bring a treat every single day or even once a week
Right.
to
Yeah.
my kid. Like, pick something silly or goofy or I don't know, dumb suckers. You can get a
Or
million
choose
of
like
them.
one
That goes into food dyes. I apologize.
choose like one like day a month, right? Or like
Yeah.
even if you can't do it every week.
Well,
like, you
or
know,
just
where
like
they-
review days. Like
Yeah.
if you know you have a high stress in
Yes.
activity,
Mhm.
like even just a mint, like
Yeah.
because not like there's so many like things you can unravel with mints of it's something that keeps their stomach at bay. It also is something that they can focus on
Mhm.
if they're just keep it in their mouth. Gum gets messy, so mints kind of alleviate that, and it's a sign of good faith as well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So yeah, like obviously, like as a teacher, a lot of times you can't bring anything. Like I mean, like even as when I lead teen life groups, I always ask the question, "Am I allowed to bring snacks?" And most of the time, I get the "You don't work here, do what you want" kind of question. But like as a teacher, you kind of have to be careful with that, especially with all like the dyes and the
Allergies, yeah.
allergy stuff. But yeah, I mean that's important too. If we go back to kind of like testing, but also group leading as well, have their supplies ready and waiting for them.
Mm.
One thing that was preached on me as a teacher was if you have a test and they can have a highlighter or an eraser or whatever, you have things ready. You take all the equations of stress out. Like I know I've talked about this before, but like when I leave the house, I'm immediately stressed out if I feel like I'm like grabbing 8 things and I'm trying to get
Mhm.
situated, and you have 3 kids and everything, and so like if they come in and they know that everything's there for them and all they have to do is focus on one thing,
Yeah, they
that
just have to
helps
get
them.
there.
Same thing with group too. Like if they know that all they have to do is come in there and listen to what you're saying in group,
Yeah.
that's the way to go.
I think I was surprised, even just as a student minister, like how important this was. Like just meeting people at the door, like even as a youth minister, group leader, because like especially as a student minister, they don't have to be there. And so like the amount of times like a new student would be coming up the stairs with their parent, and you could hear them talking out, like, okay, you got like we're going in, right? And like so much of that's decided in those first few moments.
Mhm.
Right? If there's not a friendly face at the door saying, "Hey, what's your name? I'm Caleb," right? It's like you're walking into a space with unknown people
Yeah.
in a new space, and it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
And the survival reaction is I'm just gonna go stand in this corner and try not to interact, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe even just convince my mom to walk away. If you can meet them in those first few moments, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's huge of getting them even just in the door and comfortable. Another huge thing that I noticed too is knowing names. Like know
Mhm.
names. Like as a teacher, as at the start of the year as a group leader, the sooner that you can know and familiarize yourself with the student's name, it means so much,
Yeah.
right? Of a lot of times they're probably used to adults that don't care to know. And the second time you see them, you say, "Hey Cole, how are you?" Like it's like, whoa, they remembered my name. I think.
Well, and that's a couple other things that about conscious discipline that they're real big on is they like when you start classes, they in the beginning of the year they talk about making nameplates because
Yeah.
not only does it give them ownership of their name,
Right.
it shows you what they want to be called, and it
Mhm.
gives you a visual for what they need to be seen as well.
Yeah.
And so that's always really good. We do that in teen life curriculum too. We have nameplate lessons
Mhm.
where like it gives them ownership of that, and it helps you also give them a name to their face. And then also the other big thing too is breathing exercises
Mm.
of just sitting down, taking a breath. Like obviously for elementary age, there's a lot of goofy ones and, holding the balloon and letting it pop, that kind of stuff. And, maybe gauge the age of what you're doing this with. Because if I try to do that with high schoolers, they would just stare daggers at me. But just a simple, hey, take 3 deep breaths, and then we're gonna go. That gets that scientifically gets you from that limbic in that survival state to the frontal lobes and gets them thinking better. And then last thing, kind of what you're saying, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, that's all well and good, that's pie in the sky, that's perfect world, I can't be at the door every time.
Yeah.
Another thing with conscious discipline is giving students a job and a purpose and empowering them to do that. So like if you have like if you're a student minister, you have a leader or whatever, empowering people to do that for you is also big. So like if you know as a teacher that you have to be at your desk or doing other things in the classroom, find a student who's one, needs to be empowered, and two, can handle that. Let them be the classroom greeter, because it doesn't matter who greets them. It's just letting them know that, again, am I safe? Am I loved?
Yeah.
Cool. Like, let's go. Let's have our 45-minute class group, whatever it may be. And so that's the thing, is like, there's so much scientifically that goes with this stuff. And again, if you can get past the discipline part of the name, like I was very, like, I'm a very, what's the word, Karlie? I'm a very pessimistic, like whenever new things come to me, I'm very skeptical, and I'm very like
grumpy.
Yeah, grumpy, probably the right word. like why do, because like, even like with Enneagram stuff, when I got hired at Teen Life, they wanted me to do all stuff, and I was very like, no, I don't want to be a part of that. But then I saw like the value of it. Same thing with this one. Like, I, as a teacher, like every summer it was, here's another new trend that we want you to do. And when this one came along, I was very hesitant, but then when I started using it and putting it in practice, I was like, oh, yes, oh, this is legitimate. Like, this makes sense.
This is going to change. Listening to you talk about it, I read an article on it too that I'll post. Like, it will change how I do teen life groups moving forward. Because I'll be honest, it's real easy for me to get there early. I always get fully set up. I put out a snack or candy or something on the table, and then usually I sit and wait for him. And as I'm thinking about that, I'm like, that is awful. And it makes me feel uncomfortable too, because it's like, what do I do with my hands? Like, what do I, and being at the door, if I can, to greet them, even in the hallway, to be like, hey guys, I'm so glad to see you. Like, that can make a huge difference and set your group up for success before you even start.
Yeah, agreed.
I remember like taking youth ministry classes, and it was no names, like, even if you're bad at knowing names, you meet a student, write down on your phone. Like, it can be creepy of like, why does Caleb have a hit list of his students in his phone? But like, I remember like, Robert Osby talking about the importance of, building this environment. And I remember like the first time that a parent came back to me and was like, it was a huge deal that you remembered his name. And like, I was like, he was right. It was frustrating. But it's every little thing, like we said earlier, matters to building an environment where teens feel comfortable, where they feel safe, where they feel loved. And, at Teen Life, we always say that teens are not a problem to be solved. And so, the more things that we can do to make sure that they are loved and encouraged and supported by us, the better. But we're so thankful for you guys listening. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. But thank you guys for listening.